Thanks very much, Mark, and everybody that just presented for a really interesting session. As a person whose background is as a infectious diseases epidemiologist who was actually trained before COVID, obviously I do like numbers, but also over the years, you realise that numbers are not particularly relevant if we don't think about the people, the individuals. And I'll go back to the sort of the start of yesterday and say, with our welcome to country, we had somebody who stood up here and talked about his story in a very generous way. I was not expecting us to have that start to the thing, but where you realise that there are a lot of things in that story, that there's a person who, from the very beginning, it is difficult. There is racism, which, Troy, I think we have to keep on calling it out. Constantly there is racism in our country against our First Nations people, against people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and that impacts on how we provide care. The reason we do not have good data, Anna, to do with people from culturally and linguistically diverse communities is because, number one, when they arrive here, we don't test people properly, and quite reasonably, they don't want to be tested because we have rules around whether or not they then get booted out of the country or get health care or allowed to stay here and all sorts of things. It's a really, in my view, simple system to fix. We have looked at that data. We've seen that data. We know where that data is. We know how to fix that system. And yet we won't even talk about that. And it's probably not going to be in our national strategies as to the way to impact hepatitis B in particular, but hepatitis C in this country, because of the way we have our migration laws and the way we treat people coming to this country who we all benefit from every migrant that comes into our country, and yet we treat them with a disdain as they enter about their healthcare. We treat our First Nations people with disdain. And so until we actually begin to really address some of those big issues of racism and stigma in our country, we will all be constantly fighting this fight and not having to give up on this fight. But just remember that it fits within that broader context. And it's partly why our sector doesn't get the money it should. It's partly why our sector doesn't get the recognition it should. And it's partly why we don't follow what I would call, and something Kerry and I were talking about last night, I'm very conservative, but an evidence-based approach to something that Nick has just shown. With a limited small amount of money, we will eliminate hepatitis C. With a little bit more money, I'll be honest, we could eliminate hepatitis B from this country. And with not too much money as well, we could end HIV. And Mark, in fact, it's probably not as much as Hep C or Hep B, but it still needs to be some money. We could get those jobs done. We could just all then, I don't know, I'm going to drink pina coladas, but we could all go and do something else. It is not even like we're making a big ask. And I think that's something we have to remember. So that's the first thing I just wanted to say. As I listen to all that data, I sit there sometimes and get very frustrated. I think, really, we just need Gina Reinhardt to stop doing whatever she's doing and give us the money that would make her happy, or somebody like her, because she's not going to be happy with all that money. Most really rich people, if we could just convince them to give away some of their money, they would be happier, and we would be we'd be out of a work job, and you'd all have to find new jobs in 7 years' time. But really, if we thought about it, so let's not forget the inequity that drives the problems in our sector, drives the problem in the first place, and then we could really have a solution. But anyway, that's just off-piste. So there you go. That's me not even looking at the slides. Well, I don't even know whether I meant to. So with that in mind, though, getting back to the centrality, we need numbers, but we need us all to maintain our energy. Because we can look at the numbers and we can have days like this. And this is why we thought, well, we have a day at the end of ECA. And there's a bit of a discussion about it, like whether it would be a waste of money. Sorry? And if we're going to have one, that's what I always reckon, we're going to have two. But the reason you have to have things like this is because we all have to realise that despite all of what I just spoke about, which was a bit negative, in fact, we're all fantastic. And you're all fantastic. And we're all doing really good things to change a really difficult, intractable problem within our country in a way that's really positive. That we're working with our communities, we're working with people to try and change that. And every now and then you just need a day or two where you actually get to acknowledge that you yourself has done something really great, which you all have. So thank you very much. You've all done great things. And that together, you're not doing that great thing when you're feeling a bit tired and exhausted. You're not doing it alone. There are other people in your workplace that are working on that, but there are other people in your jurisdiction working on that, and there are other people in your state working on that, in your country. And we're all working on it together. And if we just keep in mind that we should keep on giving each other energy in the task that we've set ourselves, in the formidable task, the challenge, but that also is what makes life fun, because a life without a challenge does get dull. So do something after 2030 in your pina coladas. But it is a challenge, but so you need to come together to celebrate your successes. And that's what this is about. Today was about saying thank you to all of you who are involved in this partnership, and to celebrate the success of the partnership, and to show off to ourselves and perhaps give us more energy to go forward and say to others, be part of a partnership, be part of a cause where we are going to eliminate a disease from our country. But as we do that, it's not just about the disease. It's about thinking about the people who have that disease, the reason why they have that disease, the wrongness that they have been put in a place where that may happen to them, and how can we stop that from happening, and how can we prevent this from happening, and how can we make sure that their journey to care, to support, is not a horrid, difficult, stigmatized, like, why are we having to have so much treatment in prisons? And why do we think of prisons as a success? It's a terrible failure if you think about it. It's great that we're exploiting prisons in some way, but if you think about that story, it's a national shame. So think about how we can change that and not lose our energy on it. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, because I think that's what I'm meant to be doing today's. So generally, thank you. Then I'm meant to be able to work the computer. Sorry. Can I get the next slide if it's at all possible? It's changing here, but it's not changing up there. That's cool. That's all right. I'll just go off from here. I'll just go. So where to from here? So as I mentioned to you yesterday morning, because I thought I'd tell you the answer before, it's like the best lecture I ever had from university was when the university lecturer used to come in and say, I'm going to tell you the answers to the questions on the exam. And so you knew what to learn. So the answer to the question on the exam of where do we go to from here is that at my institute, the Burnett, and to their credit, am I doing something entirely wrong? Oh, no. I am often doing things in, there you go. Just, yeah, I was doing that one, but there you go. That doesn't matter. Yeah, I am pressing that one. It's just doing it here, but not there. I once got a prize at our institute for being the worst person at computers, but anyway. So basically the exam question was, would we get more money? Where would we go to from here? And essentially that we would get more funding. And the Burnett has decided, as I said, to provide us with ongoing funding. And this is super exciting because I actually think this is a successful partnership and collaboration. Just to make sure people understand, the Burnett has invested, but it's still ECA, and that investment and those structures, it doesn't mean that it's a Burnett thing. It's an ECA partnership, of where part of why we were able to convince the board to invest is they weren't investing in Burnett research, they were investing in Eliminate C Australia. And so those partnerships, the structures, the governorship will continue. And if we can improve that and make it stronger, and in terms of how community engages and how we involve people, we will do that. It is not the Burnett gets to kind of, go, oh, this is a research project. That is not what we are doing. Where to from here? For the next few months, though, to be honest, we have to look back a little bit where we have a responsibility to write up all of the great work that you guys did, that all of the partners did, and provide a report to the Paul Ramsay Foundation. But also we will write that report really knowing that they will possibly look at that report. How hard they look at that report's hard to know, but in fact, what we'll do is we'll report back to all of you. Because I think that's the most important thing, that yes, we can report to the funders, but we'll report back to all of you so that you can see what you did, what others did, and we can take something from this. And we will think about how we provide that report. And often I think of reports being in different structures. The report back to our funder, the report back to you, the partnership, and the reports that we will make sure are structured in a way for government, so that government knows that we've done a good job and that there are ways forward so that we can, in fact, when we go and talk about funding, how we help people in government get that funding. And I also think we have to understand when we talk about government, there's those people we work with, and some of you are in this room, that we can support and help, or online, get more funding from that system and structure, that you don't get the support and the funding you need to do your work We all need to recognise that and say you're part of the partnership like that, and also have stuff so that we can do those pitches to that higher end of government, to the ministers of health, to the key people in departments, so that they actually, when a funding pitch comes up, go, yeah, this is a priority and I can be seeking glory from this. I can be the Minister from Health that did X, Y, or Z. So I think we need to think about those two kind of components when we talk about government. But we will then plan to develop a detailed work plan in 2023, 2024, reviewing our structure and thinking about what it looks like to best execute that work plan. We'll reconvene or convene the executive to discuss that. And so we had an executive meeting this morning, which in part had a brief discussion of ways forward, but really asking the executive to be thinking about what we do next. And then discussions also, an executive, Jeff Drenkan, who's our Chief Operating Officer, came and attended executive, and Jeff has been really helpful in pushing this through and trying to get this, making sure we got the support of the board for ongoing funding. And Jeff is really interested in working as part of the partnership on how we bring more money into the sector. Jeff is good at that, okay? And so his offer was to be how does his team help that? How do we help organisations bring money to you? So how do we get money into the sector, and how do we help you get the money that you're looking for? So that's one of those things that we will also be having a discussion about as to how that particular component of the Institute, which can be very, very effective, can be not just effective on the Institute's behalf, but on other people's behalf as well. So we will have a look at how that looks. Engage government to better understand funding opportunities, I think, is a really critical thing. And as I said, there's I think of those as at different levels, that we've got to understand that the people in this room are our allies, or people online are our allies, and we've got to help work with them so that they can successfully prosecute their job well. We will continue with the really important National Hepatitis C 50,000 project partner work, because that's, in our view, part of what ECA is about, is helping those things. We will also continue to deliver Aboriginal specific work and really try and begin to build and develop that work up further across ECA, also across within our institute as well. And also we've got revised work plans, and really thinking about the strategy, have a really good look when the national strategy becomes available and say, what do we see as ECA having a particular role on that in the discussion with exec. I think that's all I really want to be saying, except I want to do a formal thank you to Elisa Padrana for all of the work that you've done, Elisa, on ECA, and also the team that work with Elisa. But I'm not going to name all of them because that's where I'm really bad at names. I'll start to forget, but it's more that I'll just get confused in my head. But Elisa, thank you for all of the work of doing this. When we set it out on this journey, people won't realise, but it kind of happened in a bit of a hurry. And I looked around and I thought, who the hell is going to do all of this when I've just said, oh yeah, we'll be able to do that. And I thought, thank God Elisa's back in the country. And then I approached Elisa. I sort of pretended it wouldn't be too much. So Elisa, thank you very much for your last 5 years of work. For today as well, Steph Burnett, thank you very much for all of the organisation, and Liz Nicol, who I think had to handle probably much more than we were expecting as well. But particularly can I thank all of you, because it's a partnership. We want this, as I said, to be a really strong partnership to continue. We've got a job that we have another 7.5, 8 years to get done, and it would be really great to get it done. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next ECA meeting, whenever that will be. So thank you.
Just very brief housekeeping. If anybody has parked here at the airport, you need to validate your ticket downstairs at the front desk and then hop to it, because they only give you 30 minutes to get out. And it might take you 30 minutes to get out of the car park. And if, for those of you, hopefully all of you have cab charges to get home. If you don't, come and see us. If you have any reimbursements, hopefully you picked up the blue form from yesterday, please email us at ecaustralia@burnett.edu.au and we will organise that reimbursement. Thank you.